Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at another short Latin story. This one's called The Donkey and the Horse, and it comes from The Latin Reader by H.J. Hardy, again, that he calls for the lower forms in school. So these are some of the introductory stories, he calls them. To Hardy, these were aimed at sort of a beginner level, maybe beginner intermediate. I would say, again, with almost all of these, at least in my classroom, these would probably fall into more the intermediate level because they do have things like subjunctive, which is something that we don't really see until a little more the middle late of our Latin curriculum. But I would say it's not necessarily for beginners, but it's somewhere in that intermediate range. And like I've said before, they're fun because they're very short. They usually have sort of a moral or a theme to them. And they give you something to read outside of sort of a traditional Latin curriculum. And the more you read, and see sort of a variety of stories, the better off you're going to be at practicing your Latin. So I would use them that way. What I'm going to do to start the video is read the story to you, then pause it. And again, I'd always encourage you to do what we call the read and reread method. So as you listen to me or read it yourself, even better, write down any vocab you don't understand, any grammar you're not sure of, and try to look these up so you can get a better sense of what's going on. The more you read after that, so in other words, after you've looked it up, read it a second, a third, a fourth time. What you're trying to do is to be able to read this without having to live in a dictionary, constantly looking up the words or constantly looking up the grammar. Once you can read it, as a story for what it is without, just sitting and translating in your head, that's a good sign that you know what's going on, and it's good practice for you. If you want, at the end of the video, I'll walk you through the story too, so that would be a chance for you to kind of look and see if your story matches mine to see if you're on the right track. But to start, I'll give you the story, and then I'll pause the video, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So it goes like this. You have asinos onustos, sarcinis equum rogavit, ut aliqua parte oneris se levare, si se vivum videre velle, sed ille asini preces repudiavit. Paulo post igitor asinus labore consuptus in via corruit et efflavit anima. Tum agitator omnes sarcinas, quas asinas portavera, atque in super etiam pellem asino detractam in equum imposuit. Ibi ille sero priorem superbiam deplorans, me miserum inquit, qui parvulum onus in me recipere noluerem, cum nunc cogar tantas sarcinas fere una cum pelle comitis mei, cuius preces tam superbe contempserum. So we're going to pause the video there. Again, if you want to listen to it again, feel free to go back, or better yet, read it on your own. But now that we're at this part, we're going to kind of unpack it. And again, you should take this part of the video, the second part, after you've had a chance to read it and reread it, and just see if what you came up with is close to mine. It doesn't have to be the exact thing, but if it sounds, on the right track, you can feel good that you understood the story. So let's dive in and unpack it. We start with this line. The asinos is a donkey, by the way. So you have the asinos, and he's described as onustus, which means burdened, right? Kind of weighed down. So you have the donkey burdened by sarcinis. So that's a word that means like baggage, luggage, something like that, a burden, right? Maybe baggage is the best way to do it. So kind of loaded down or burdened with baggage, he asked the horse, right? And he asked him kind of for help, that he might levare it, right? You have the imperfect subjunctive here. He might carry, right? Or he himself might carry some part of the burden, right? Aliqua parte oneris. So the donkey turns to the horse and says, "Hey, can you carry some of this?" And he says, he asks him to do it. Right, you have this sort of indirect command here. If he wished, right, or he wanted, vellet, again, it's the subjunctive. If he wanted to see him, right, videre se, vivum, alive, living. So he says, I'm dying here, right? If you want to keep me alive, help me with this burden. But, right, said, ille is talking about the horse. The horse repudiavit, he rejected, right, repudiated, you might say in English. He rejected the preces asini, you could say prayers. It almost means more like pleas. Preces, right, you're asking. So the prayers or the pleas of the donkey. So the horse says, no, right, I don't want to carry it. Absolutely not. Then you have Paulo postigator. So a short time later, right, a short time after, therefore, the asinus, the donkey, consumtus labore, right? So having been sort of consumed or overloaded by the labor, he corruit in via, he fell or collapsed into the road, and efflavit animam. So efflavit means to like breathe out, right, is one way to translate it. So he breathed out his spirit is more like an idiom for he died, right? He breathed his last his last breath, you might say. So the poor donkey dies, okay, because he didn't get any help. And you have then the agitator, that's the driver, meaning like the person driving the carriage, I guess, or the cart, maybe, whatever these animals are pulling, whatever it is. The driver, he imposuit at the very end, he put on, right? So he put on in equum onto the horse the omnes sarkinas, all the baggage which the asinas portaverat, which the donkey had carried, right? So in other words, now the horse has to carry all the stuff that the donkey had carried, and in super etiam, so in addition, right, in super, additionally, you might say, also the pelem asino detractam. So the pelem is like the skin or the hide. Detractam means like having been pulled off from the donkey, from the asino. Okay, so not only does he have to carry all the stuff of the donkey, but he has to carry his friend, basically, right? The hide, which is kind of the punishment and the moral of this story. So then you have Ibi, right? So then Ile is the horse again. So he regretting deplorans, so regretting his priorem superbium, his previous arrogance, you might say, or previous pride. Sero here means like too late, right? It's a word that means late, but here probably works best as too late. So regretting his previous pride too late, he said, "Me miserum," right? Poor me, right? Miserable me. Who and here we have this sort of the clause of characteristic. You're seeing the subjunctive again. So it's me who noluerem, who didn't want, right? The perfect subjunctive, who didn't want to recuperate, to take on or accept, you might say, a parvulum onus, a small burden in me, onto me, right? So in other words, woe is me is really what he's saying. Me who didn't want to take on for myself a small burden, since now, right? Cum nunc, right? Kogar again is subjunctive. Since now I am compelled to carry fere tanta sarkina, such a big or such great burdens, you might say, such great baggage. Una here means together, so together with the pele, right, the hide or the pelt of my friend, comitus mei, of my companion, right, whose preces, right, whose pleas or prayers, contempseram, I had rejected, you might say, disregarded, probably works best there. Tam superbe, so arrogantly. So the moral of the story here is the donkey says, "Hey, take a little bit of my baggage so I can live," right? The horse says no, and he ends up carrying not only all the baggage, so more than he was anticipating, but also the body of his friend. Okay, and that's sort of the moral involved here with the story of the horse and the donkey. So hopefully that made some sense. Again, there's some subjunctives going through here, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. It might be just getting used to the vocab. But if your translation was in the general direction, pretty close to what I just did, you can feel pretty good that you have it under control and that you were able to read and understand this story. Okay, so again, keep at it, use it as practice, and hopefully it's just a fun kind of side note from your normal curriculum. Good luck with it.